Here's your host, Dan Celia.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. My name's Dan Celia. It's great to be here. It's Friday. It's Rapid Fire Friday. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we possibly can. So you may want to queue your call up, 866-300-9298, 866-300-9298. You want to queue your call up. We're going to get to, once we get to the phones, we're going to stay with the phone. So listen, folks, if you've got a financial question, I know that many of you have a financial question because I'm getting literally thousands of emails. Set a record for emails. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. So make sure that, if you, I'm not going to, I'll just be honest with you. I'm trying to read a lot of them. I get to some, obviously, but it's very, very difficult, particularly coming off a week like this week when I've been traveling. There's just, I get backed up. So if I miss a day, I'm backed up 1,800. That's been pretty much the average, except for the exceptional day where we have more than that. But just want to give you a heads up that today, Friday, is always a good day to try to call in because we do try to get to as many calls to answer your financial question. No question is too simple. Remember, if you've got the question, there's probably thousands out there across the 35 or 38 states or so, or nationally now, I guess, as a result of Biz TV, that have the same question. So give a call. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call. 866-300-9298, Rapid Fire Friday. So let's do that. Yesterday, all the markets closed in negative territory. The Dow was down 73 yesterday. The Nasdaq down 10. The S&P was down 6 yesterday. Of course, we're waiting for this national ISM numbers coming out today. Right now, the stock futures are looking like they are ahead right now. So we'll wait and see. But right now, even though they're expecting a reading of about 55% is the expected ISM index compared to 56.2% reading in September. That would be down, obviously. And again, if that is true, that means we've got another number trending in the wrong direction. This is a very big number when we think about the future of the economy. So we'll get a look at that. When that number comes out, I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I do believe it's coming out later on during the program, so we'll release that number when it comes out. Right now, everything in the news talking about Obamacare, as you can imagine. It was very interesting. I saw some headlines. Fed chairman or Fed president from the Philadelphia Fed was speaking this morning on CNBC, and Charles Plosser of the Philadelphia Fed Bank said that he is growing more worried about the eventual exit. I hope there's an eventual exit. I'm beginning to worry about whether there's ever going to be an exit. But he's talking about, he's a little worried about the eventual exit from the Fed's bond buying program and suggests that the central bank's buying program would be limited or should be limited to lower the balance sheet. We'll see. He says, I think many people, myself included, are beginning to worry about the consequence of unwinding. I'm not worried about the consequence of unwinding. I'm worried about the consequence of continuing the buying. And I think that the worrying of the buying has a lot more validity than does the unwinding. Listen, the worrying about the unwinding is worrying about the pain that it is going to cause through the economy. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that because it's going to be a temporary pain. Obviously, the longer we go before we start that unwinding, the greater the pain's going to be, right? But I think that the long-term effect, the unintended consequences, and frankly, one of the things that I heard yesterday coming out of the Fed was to be concerned about the unintended consequence of this continuing quantitative easing. Here's the thing about that. We talk about it, myself included, about the unintended consequence. I gotta believe that the presidents of the Fed regions throughout the country and the Fed chairman are smart enough to understand that the unintended consequences may be unintended, but they understand what those long-term consequences could be. And they need to assess that and weigh that against continuing on with the drug of quantitative easing. So, in my opinion, the sooner they pull the punch bowl away from the party goers on Wall Street, the better off the fundamentals of the economy are going to be in the long run, not in the short term, but in the long run. So we'll have to see how that goes. I'm not real confident that they're going to do anything about that, but it's interesting to see one of the more conservative Fed presidents out of Philadelphia that pretty much has not necessarily agreed with the Fed chairman. And by the way, the Philadelphia Fed president is a voting member, so he gets a vote. Anyway, manufacturing PMI keeps up a very rapid pace in the UK, even though we are looking at a somewhat of a stagnation in their inflation, which may be perceived as being good on the short term. In the long term, it's not so good. They got to be very careful about a stagnation. So we'll have to wait and see. But nevertheless, it looks like they are enjoying a robust industrial growth and stronger this quarter than in the last year. So that is some good news for the UK, who, by the way, the UK experienced a great deal of austerity. That has become a nasty word here in the American government. There's no shot at us talking about austerity, in my opinion. They're not going to take away their out-of-control spending. Very interesting as we continue to hear President Obama talk. We're going to get to the phones, folks, as soon as we can here. And once we get to them, we'll stay with them. But, you know, I said a while ago that the one thing that we've got to take into consideration when it comes to Obamacare is that this president and all of the liberals on Congress can't blame Republicans. They can't blame conservatives. There is nowhere to run and hide on this. This was not a bipartisan piece of legislation. The Democrats own this lock, stock, and barrel. You can't take that away. And they have nowhere to hide. They have nowhere to blame. And I made a joke last week saying this must be a very frustrating situation for the administration, who has made a career of blaming everybody else for anything good and using the I did this, I word a zillion times in one sentence when something goes good. I also said last week, and I pointed out to my wife as I heard, we were listening to the radio, driving in the car last night, and I was saying that, listen to this, and they were talking about the Affordable Care Act. And everybody they were interviewing was talking about the Affordable Care Act. And remember, folks, I said last week that, mark my words, in the next 2 weeks, you're going to start hearing all the talking points be Affordable Care Act. Nobody's going to be saying Obamacare. He is starting to distance himself from that. My guess is, and I believe, that within a month, they're just going to shorten that to the health care plan or the care plan. They're not going to use the word affordable because this thing is anything but affordable to the Americans that have to pay it. Some numbers came out from the government this morning in reference to people signing up. There have been 6. Yes, 6. It's exciting after the new launch. It's good. I mean, 6 people. Look, this thing is imploding if the Obama administration had any sense, the very first thing they would be talking about doing is pulling back and getting rid of this plan and have a 1-year extension that goes to a 2-year extension, and that it gradually goes away and people stop talking about this. Because if they keep on pushing and it becomes an utter failure, that will be his legacy, because remember, he hasn't done anything else. So his 8-year legacy will be hung on a failed program that he spent 8 years working on. Meantime, the economy of the United States of America falling apart. But getting back to the blame thing, the president, well, first of all, let me just say, because I think just as a point of clarification, I was wrong. I was wrong. I said that there's nowhere to run and hide from this. He can't blame anybody. What is he going to do? How is he going to address and talk about this when there is no blame that he can place on anybody, right? Listen to this. Clip 208, Devin. Listen to this clip from the president.
If they put as much energy into making this law work as they do in attacking the law, Americans would be better off. Frankly, if every governor...
Let's go back and play that again. But before we do, he's talking about the governors of the states throughout America. Now, wait a minute. What governors do you think he's talking about? Just take a wild guess. I'll give you a second. Yes, for all of you who said Republican governors. He has found a way. He has found a way to put the problem with the rollout of Obamacare on the federal, on the GOP governors of the state. So that's who he's talking about when we first come into this clip. Go ahead, Devin.
If they put as much energy into making this law work as they do in attacking the law, Americans would be better off. Frankly, if every governor was working as hard as Duvall or Governor O'Malley in Maryland or Governor Cuomo in New York to make this law work for their citizens, as opposed to thinking politically, about 8 in 10 Americans would be getting health insurance for less than $100 a month.
Well, let's do it. I say let's all the GOP governors get together and work hard to get this thing working so that everybody can have the $100 a month health care. I am, I know that the president is taking a huge sigh of relief as one of his handlers has said, I got an idea. We just need to blame the states. And we can blame the GOP states in particular. We can turn this around to be a GOP problem. That's exactly what is happening. Now, here's the question. Will we see any of the GOP representatives, the conservative Republican representatives, come out and point this out and rebuke, harshly, I might add, rebuke the president for this blame game? Let's see. I suspect that we may get some from Rand Paul and some Ted Cruz, I hope. But let's just see if the Republicans even have enough guts to rebuke this blame game that the Democratic talking points are going to quickly move to. You're listening to American Family Radio, Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia. Hey, we're going to get to the phones. We're going to stay with the phones. 866-300-9298. I know the lines are busy, but remember, as I take a call, a line opens up. So keep trying to call 866-300-9298. We'll be right back.